Welcome, welcome. I don't think there's a more perfect top than for fashion right now than this new pattern. This was new for spring. One of 29 asymmetrical striped front top, tie top. What a name. Asymmetrical. We want to get all the parts in because asymmetric is what's so popular, stripes are what's so popular, and the fact that it's a tie front. So, and you guys know I've shown some of these tie fronts. The tie fronts are not like the simplest thing on the planet. Is that fair? So what you want to do is take a fabric, and this is the fabric I used, and you're going to take the first thing you're going to do, because there's lots of stripes out there, and there's lots of knits out there. But take a couple corners of it and tie them. And what you want to do is see how big the knot is. Because when you tie it, you don't want this big knot. And there's some cottons that are thicker than others. So just give it a tie, cross it, make sure it's nice. I thought this fabric was just absolutely perfect for it. We'll have the fabric number in the bottom of the corner. It's a knit, it just worked. It just worked all the way around. To me, I thought it was a perfect fabric pattern combination. And then I wanted to go through and show you the parts so that you'd understand how it goes together. I've had a couple questions on how it goes together, and I just wanted to clarify. So we're going to do a little sewing, a little pattern work, and we'll do both. Keep in mind that if you don't have this pattern, none of this is going to make sense to you because you have to have the pattern, you have to be following along. So this is really a video for silhouette customers who have pattern number 129 or are interested in this asymmetric front tie. This is a case where I did it in a border print. I just love this. I really liked how weird it was. And then I did a bias collar. The one I have on, I just did a straight. All those options are up to yours, but I want to go through and make sure you understand how the pieces go together. There's actually 3 pieces that make up the front: a back, a sleeve, and a neckband. So the back, the sleeve, and the neckband, just like always. But these 3 pieces that add up the front are definitely different. Sometimes when I see a pattern like this and I know it's going to be a little more complex to put together, I say, no, it's not going to work. The sewers are just not going to get it. It's too hard. Other times I say, no, it's hard, but we're going to go for it. And I'll follow it up with something like this because this is what we need. So let me just say to you that your sewing skills don't need to be any more than beginner because nothing about this is hard. This is a sweater set base. We're just sewing seams together. It's just a matter of understanding what to sew together and when. And I'm going to take you through that process, okay? Hopefully it'll make it easy. So the first thing you do is you're going to make your ties, and you've got your front. You've got a right front and a left front. The right front has the tie, and then you have a bottom left, and it has a tie. So the guide sheet shows you you're going to put the right sides together. You're going to sew to a notch, and then fold it and turn it. And again, that's very clear in the instructions as to how to do that. When you cut your pattern, it gives you stripe direction. It gives you all that so that when you have it together, the stripes are going all the different ways that you want them to. You can obviously change that, but I would make it up once first, just so that you got a handle as to how you want it to do. And again, the base is the sweater set. So if you change the angle of the shoulder, you change the angle of the shoulder. Whatever you do to that sweater set, you do to this also. The grading is such that if you go from one size at the top to one size at the bottom, you'll be able to follow that on this pattern as well. Okay, so once I've made the ties, and I'm going to show you part of this on sewing, but I think we can almost see it more clearly on the pattern than we can on sewing. So that's my purpose in really showing you both. So you'll notice this is what we call a right front. It's piece number 1. There's a little bit of extra gathers in here to bring a fullness across the front of this tie. Okay, and it's meant to kind of cover tummies, and it does all kinds of really good things. Otherwise, I would have left it out. So this is the part that we're creating, and when we do that, and when we make that tie, we turn it to the right side. The tie on piece number 1 is going to end up like so. And you can notice if you really look closely at the diagrams are very, very accurate, and we show that you're only sewing to the first notch. And I'm always a big believer in kind of going through the steps beforehand. All right, so that's kind of what it's going to look like. Then what you're going to do is you literally just fold and there, it's notched up here, it's notched there, double notch here, double notch there. You're going to fold this top layer over the bottom layer, and you're going to see that you're actually going to have 3 layers. 1, 2, 3, just for that short distance, 1, 2, 3. I basted them together. We're going to show you where I'm sewing this a little bit, but you don't have to. You can just put 2 pins right there. Just for that little short section, you have to clip the notch into there, and you're stitching right between that 3. That's what gives you this extra little bit before it goes into the tie. I mean, it's really actually really easy, and it says you put the wrong side against the right side, and that's kind of simple. I just think it's easier to see it sometimes than to read through it. All right, so you've created this side. Then this side is the left front. You've got a little pleat down here, very easy. It shows you to pleat one side to another, and then it sews together, just like so. Now remember, this is done together, but that doesn't really even phase you. You're sewing along. I'm going to lift this up so you can see it. This portion is here. And what you're doing is you're sewing this portion right sides together, and it comes along. It has a point that we're lining up together, and it comes all the way around. This pleats in and ends right there. And there's C's, and I put C's on there so you could see where all the C's come together. So this is a pattern where, again, it doesn't take a high skill level, but it takes patience and understanding and looking at the pattern. A lot of times when we construct something together, we don't really need to look at the pattern once we've transferred markings, but I think it really helps to look at the pattern because the pattern is weird looking by the time you get all this done, and I think it helps to see all those notches beforehand so that when you start to put it together, they all come for you. So what this does is this sews together and comes like so. That's taken a little notch there, and there you have it. Okay, so it comes around there, and again, all those notches line up, and there you have it. Okay, the tie stays out of it. Okay, that piece sews there, comes the ties out of it, comes over to right there, and again, those C pieces line up. All right, so once those C pieces line up, and I'm going to kind of show that to you like that, you've got this little V section in the side, which is right here. So you can see that there's a little, we'll take her sleeve away. I love the sleeves. You can see that it goes from here to here. And this piece is number 3, and it's got that V section, especially once you sew it like this. But the V section is not here. This is actually the side seam, and this is actually the hem. And again, if you look at the piece, there's no notches here and there's no notches here. So that means it doesn't go to any other piece, and that leads you to believe it's the side seam and the hem. So here's your notches, and here's your notches. And there are your notches, and there are your notches. So once you sew this and you created that tie again, and that's on the first step, this opens up like so, and that is sewn to the side piece, and this bottom portion is sewn to the front. And again, one is single notched, one is double notched, so that you can see that come together. And when you put that together, that forms this front tie. Okay, and then when you have the two together, you get to tie them like you want. The rest of the top is just now, you sew the shoulder seams. I put the neckband on is the next thing I do. I mean, the instructions have you do the same thing. Then you can put the sleeves in, and of course the side seams, and finish it up again just like the sweater set. So I think, again, if you go through and just kind of understand a little bit more carefully, we're going to take you to a little sewing section. But I think just understanding that this portion folds over, and that you just connect 3 layers from here to here. And then once you're sewing and you connect here, the tie is not sewn in, you connect straight over to the C. That's where this second piece comes in. And then knowing how that side piece will sew on, I think will really help you. Again, it's just, I don't think we could get a more stylish top for right now. It's got all the ingredients of what's going on right now, a little flare sleeve, etc., etc. That it's just a great time to make this top. It fits well. For those of you who hate darts, there's no darts. They're all built in. So you should love this top. Anyway, we're going to show you this little sewing segment now, and then we'll come back and hopefully we can wrap it all up. All right, so what I've done so far is this is piece number 1. And this is the part, unless you have the pattern, you'll just no way will you get this. These little front ties are a little more complex than what they look to be. In this case, for sure. Anyway, that's the part that goes into the neck edge. The stripes are cut this way. What I've done is I've sewn the first section, which was I made my little tie on piece number 1 and then on piece number 3 and turned them. So I think the only confusion comes in this part right here. I'm going to show you the pattern. And what the pattern looks like is this wild piece here. So you can see that there's this big gaping hole. And if you look at those notches and study the pattern, what you see is these two are going to come together and sew up here, and these two are going to come together. So there's 1 layer, 2 layer, 3 layers that are going to be sewn together. And as long as you kind of recognize that for a little bit, you'll understand this next step. And actually, I know it sounds crazy, but it's marked really clearly, but you have to, in some cases you can just follow the directions, but in this case you have to look at the tissue, the directions, and the fabric because it gets a little more complex. Okay, so there's my first mark. That's gonna, and so here it is. There's where this was gonna get folded in half. Those two sections were gonna be sewn together, and there's the 3rd layer. So for this little section right here, all those 3 layers, and because I'm using just a really thin cloth, I'm just going to have to unroll those edges carefully. And there's 3 layers in there. And the directions tell you to put the wrong layer to the right layers. I mean, it makes it really clear, but I think sometimes when it's clear, it gets a little confusing because you're thinking, well, what goes to what? But just naturally fold it over, and it actually shows 2 diagrams. One where you first fold it, and second where you stitch it. So see, what you've done is you've made a little following there where this is going to come out of. All right, so I'm going to sew that and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've sewn that. And the instructions, you don't have to sew it, but I just basted it along that edge right there. And so again, this is the portion that goes up to the neck edge. And you can see in this tie there's a little bit of fullness there. But the 2 sides of that are sewn together. You just bring them together. Okay? Now the next portion, I'm going to pin it and then sew it. It's piece number 2, and the instructions are really clear on this. It's just piece number 2. And I'm going to go back to the tissue, or to the tissue. It's just sewing this piece now onto this piece. And you can follow the notches. It's actually really clear. I don't think that's an issue. I think it's the next portion that's an issue. So I'm going to sew this on, and then I'll come back. All right, so here we have it. I've sewn piece number 2 now to piece number 1. So you see there's the front. And this tie comes out of piece number 1. And if we look at it a little more closely, you can see that there's extra fullness in piece number 1 before it goes into the tie. That's where if we look at the inside, now what I've done is I serged the layers. I stitched it on the sewing machine, but then I serged it. So I think actually it's easier to show you on the tissue, and I've showed you on the tissue, but I'm just showing you here that there's, where that bottom layer comes up, there's 3 layers for that short little while. It turns the corner, and then this just takes a little tuck to meet it. And then the next step is, it's that piece number 3, it's a side piece. So now we're bringing the other tie in now is what we're doing. And on this side here, we see there's an angular piece here, kind of an angular cut, and they have notches on them. This will be piece number 2. It has a notch, it has 1 cut. And then on piece number 1, it has 2 cuts. And then you're going to bring in the side piece, which is piece number 3. And remember, I've already done the tie. And this portion and this portion are what's going to sew in. It's going to sew actually like so. Part of this is the hem and part of it's the side seam. So all you want to do is look for the pieces that have the notch in them. This is the double notch, so I'm going to line it here. This is the single notch. I'm going to align it there. And like I said, that'll be the side seam and part of it will be the hem. But then I'll have my 2 ties in place. So again, I'll sew that and then I'll show it to you. All right, so there we go. So I've sewn the side in and you can see that it's sewn from here to here. And what I'll always do is, because that point is pretty important, I'll sew it on a sewing machine and then come back with a serger when it's, you know, really close like that. So this becomes the side seam, you can see, to a point, and that becomes part of the hem. And the side seam will kind of tell you. So then you've got your 2 ties, and the 2 ties will tie together. And again, this fabric is perfect because it's not real bulky for those ties. And then you can tie them as close as you want to on the body. But I'll show it to you on. I really just wanted to show you those 2 portions. And so it makes it clear. The rest is now the side seams, the shoulder seams, the neck binding, and the sleeves. Pretty normal stuff. And then we'll come back and pull it all together. All right, see you in a minute. All right, you've got it. If I can do it, so can you. That I know because I've been told. Now let me just tell you one thing about a band. And years ago, someone reviewed a pattern we did and said, oh, the neck banding was totally wrong. It could never fit. Unfortunately, there's a lot of misunderstanding about a neck band. So let me just tell you the facts and then you can do with it what you want. When you make a pattern for a knit neckband, it never can be right 100% of the time because all of your knit variables out there are just that, they're variables. So depending on the fabric you're using, this neckband is going to have to be adjusted based on how stretchy the fabric is and which direction the stripe is and how you're cutting it and all of those things. With this particular fabric that I used on this one, I could use the exact same neckband. We did go for a medium knit. That's what I always use. So I'm going to say I hit the majority. But if you're using a knit that's very stretchy, the neckband might not be long enough or it might be too long. So always quarter your neckline, always quarter your neckband. And if you can see that the sections aren't about a 1/2 inch, the band should be about a 1/2 inch smaller on each of those sections or a 1/4 inch smaller, then reduce your size of your neckband or adjust it. So that's just a heads up. I just wanted to let you know. If a neckband isn't something you like, you don't have to do it. You can always do a fold over elastic. You can always just fold over the edge, top stitch, and that's easy enough to be done with it. Don't let one section stop you from it. The armhole is the same as 195, so if you decide you want to use different sleeves and you don't like the drape on the puff sleeve, you can do that too. I just wanted you to see that you could get together the front. The fabric is amazing. I love it. I hope you enjoy it as well. Happy sewing from Silhouette Patterns.